Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Game Junk Podcast, episode 166, recording on Sunday, September 24th. My name is Frank.
My name is Sean.
And my name is Andrew.
And today we'll be talking about the megaton Microsoft leaks. Really leaning in on megaton because they're all about Bethesda stuff, not surprisingly, perhaps. And we'll talk a bit more about the Unity disaster debacle and how they've walked that back, and a bit about what we played. How are you guys doing?
Not too bad.
Not feeling hot over here, or I am feeling hot, I should say. Not too hot. Got a little bit of a elevated temp, so let's make it snappy.
Elevated temp, the result of stairs renovations.
Probably. To be honest.
Hot with anger or legit sickness?
No, I think it's legit sickness. The throat's a little raw feeling, a little sore, but we shall see. I'm sure it has some stair influence, me not sleeping well because I'm like tossing and turning over fighting with this lady. But,
Are you possibly, well, we talked about this after this show. I was going to lead into this, but are you possibly inhaling varnish fumes that might be playing with your immune system?
Yes, but also we were looking at the paint can that they brought, or the stain color, and it was like,
tell the listeners what happened.
Which part? There's so many things to tell.
You
I can't remember
after about spilling the.
Oh yeah, so so they came back to varnish the stairs. They were rushing at the end of the day, and they ended up spilling half a can of varnish all over our carpet downstairs that we were not planning on renovating at all. So that became a big thing. They came back, tried to clean it up with carpet cleaner, super extreme carpet cleaner. Let me say, didn't do anything. Still stained everywhere. So they're now going to give us a free hardwood landing down there, which we weren't planning on. But then the rest of the carpet, which is not that much into the room, but that's concrete under there. So you can't just put hardwood down there. So I don't know what they're going to do, but I am not talking to that lady anymore. I'm going right to my contractor, and then he can be the go-between. I'm not talking to her anymore. Done. But we looked at the paint can that they had, or the stain can, and it was like industrial use only. This does cause cancer. Do not breathe the fumes.
That's
yeah. Oh yeah. Nasty stuff.
So I was on to something, I think.
Yeah. So I'm sure we're all a little loopy for quite a few days there. Probably increased my chance of lung cancer by about 40 times or so. So I'll let you know in like 20 years how I make out.
Okay. Well, maybe Game Junk will still be going. Who knows?
Game Junk 800, my cancer announcement from my stairs. Hopefully not, but.
So the big news story, I suppose, and I don't like talking about this stuff. I kind of hate leaks, and
I'm surprised you were willing to talk about it at all.
I debated. Really... it's everywhere. Like, I think it's gross. I could care less. The only reason why I kind of want to talk about it is because the leaks are basically nothing. It's almost not a leak. Anyone could have predicted what got leaked for the most part. I would say 90% of it would be stuff you would just guess if you had to guess. So, and like, I think, remember Pactor Factor? Did anyone used to watch Pactor Factor? And
oh yeah,
like when people would write in questions and say, do you think they're working on a sequel to this game or like a huge game? He's like, yes, they are working on a sequel to that game. If a game made money, they are actively working on a sequel. You don't need to ask these questions. It's just a matter of when. So everything in there, let's kind of break some of it down. I think there are some kind of interesting things. The one that was the clickbait headline of all clickbait headlines is Phil Spencer wants to buy Nintendo. And I think he said it could be, well, I got to get the quote here. Could be a career moment. Yes, I would say buying Nintendo would do that for you. I would also like to buy Nintendo. And I think both of you would too, if you could, right?
Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, the money. I mean, this is my opportunity to bring up one of my best takes ever. It's been a while since I brought it up on the show. Apple is the company that should buy Nintendo. They are a perfect marriage. They have the same aesthetics. They both lack what the other one does well. That should be I should be seeing op-eds about this everywhere. Who should really buy Nintendo? But either way, yeah, big surprise. Nintendo, everyone would want them. The other thing I remember initially was the PlayStation 5 when it got debuted. Phil saying something about they think their product is better. We're in a better position. And I mean, maybe hardware wise, I don't know. I think there was I read a little snippet about people inferring that Mark Cerny talked too much during the PlayStation 5 tech stuff. I'm like, get real. Like he's not even saying anything bad there. But I mean, hardware, when are we going to realize hardware doesn't matter? Nintendo has the weakest hardware. No one really cares. They sell millions, billions of copies, who knows? And then maybe user experience, like online infrastructure, maybe a small effect. The only thing that really matters is the games on the system. So I would be concerned about Phil as a CEO if he is not recognizing the game lineups for both and acknowledging that, like, where are our AAA huge titles that are gonna like make people have to buy an Xbox. And there were a couple, but it's been a while. Sorry, gentlemen, what's your take? What do you think on that one?
My first take on the Nintendo Switch lower hardware thing, obviously games are all that matters. And that's so true, because you look at any company that puts out a big game on PS5 or Xbox, they bend over backwards to get it to work on Switch. Like Control literally put a game out that just streams the game to the system over the internet because they knew they could not get it running. Like companies will get it on that system because everyone wants to be on a Nintendo platform because their install base is huge. People buy games there. There's a certain quality level that's known. People love it.
Don't get me wrong. I would like Microsoft to buy Nintendo too. It'd give me a reason to play my Xbox, and it would have good technology basically going forward and kind of handle that for Nintendo. So,
and achievements.
There we go. How did I not say that? Holy,
I don't know.
You know what? Something's wrong with me. I'm not in a good place if I didn't think of achievements as the number one reason for this to happen. So, I mean, maybe it's a good sign. Maybe I'm cured of my achievement addiction. I didn't even think about that.
Let's not go too far there, Frank.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I've heard you talking about achievements. So yeah, maybe.
Hey, the road to wellness. Good stuff. Sean, any thoughts on anything we've discussed so far?
I mean, the Nintendo thing is, yeah, it's a clickbait headline. Like, who knows? Like, you know, is Nintendo even in a position to be acquired? I don't think so. So it means nothing. But I guess the launch of the Xbox Series S/X and the PS5, I think there is something to be said there for, you know, having the headline of, yes, the Series X was on paper more powerful. Maybe a few people care about that. And if they're making a decision, that could sway them. But I think in the long run, you are right. It's about the games. And, you know, I think Microsoft has been trying to address that, obviously, because of trying to acquire developers as well. But yeah, I mean, there wasn't that much new and interesting here. Like, you know,
well,
I think
with the developer thing, there was also other developers they were trying to get, Sega, or they were interested in, Warner Brothers. And I mean, to me, that's nothing surprising at all. But the other kind of, that's kind of getting into games. So let's talk about hardware stuff a bit.
Wait, hang on. Before we move on from the Nintendo thing, I think the one thing that people are pissed off about is that Phil Spencer had some quote that was basically like, you know, they are just too dumb to realize that their future is with Xbox, and we're just playing the long game to acquire them. I can't remember where that was, but that was another aspect of it. Now, was he saying that tongue in cheek? Like, it was in an email? Was it more like a joke, like, ha ha ha, we're playing the long game, we'll get you eventually kind of thing? Or was it like serious, like, you know, we're Giant Corp, we will get you eventually? Who knows? And everyone in journalism is leaning towards I'm a giant corp, I will take over everything aspect, but it's so hard to tell.
Okay, I didn't know that. I've been saying they are kind of like getting close to being in bed together for a very long time. I've predicted Game Pass on a Switch or something like that for a long time. And that was just from listening to Major Nelson's podcast at some point where they would like praise everything Nintendo did and never mention a Sony game. So this stuff has been pretty obvious for quite a while. There's a bunch of hardware stuff, unsurprising things like a console refresh, some new controllers, a new elite controller, pardon me, and then something in between a normal controller and an elite. And then to me, the biggest part of this whole leak by far that I didn't see get a lot of attention. 3/4 of Xbox gamers had a Series S. Like,
oh yeah, I heard that.
That is not a good sign. That like if you were, they've kind of pushed that away in terms of supporting every game on that. That to me just says their fan base is people who just need to buy a console. They buy kind of the most affordable thing that also might work as a box.
Plays COD.
Like, or yeah, like stuff like that, or Minecraft, right? And that has like an entertainment center, something along those lines, which is fine. But hey, in the long run, that is not going to win you any console wars. I would be very scared if I worked at a company and those were the stats for console sales. Sure, we might make our projections and quarterly results, but that would scare me, especially when your whole thing is we have the better hardware or we're better than theirs. Well, technically, are you saying the Xbox One X Pro is better than theirs? Because that's what people are buying. They're not buying your newest high-tech console.
Yeah, I mean, like that was an interesting stat. I don't really know how to take that. Like, was the Series S easier to get at launch? I don't really remember now. Does that mean that a lot of people had a PS5 and they just bought the Series S as like their secondary console so they could have Game Pass? There's a lot of ways you could look at it. And obviously, but like it has been causing problems. There's been a lot of stories about games. Baldur's Gate 3, I think, was a recent one where it's like you have to have feature parity between the Series S and the Series X. And some games they're really struggling to do that. So that is a problem for Microsoft, but maybe it was a good thing. Maybe a lot of people, that lower price point got them into their ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, it's a short-term kind of fix or cash flow thing, but I don't know. It's not a good long-term indicator for me. Also, speaking Baldur's Gate 3, they underestimated Baldur's Gate 3, as did everyone, I'm sure, to some degree. At one point, it was a Stadia exclusive or something like that. So, I mean, that was also just because all of a sudden, Baldur's Gate 3 is out. Everyone loves it. There's a little bit of hindsight is 2020 on that story as well.
The other hardware thing that is not really been talked about anywhere I've seen, and it's not anything concrete, but it's that they mention a handheld that is totally out of scope of their first party stuff, which means they're not even looking at it yet. But it does mention like Xbox Gaming Beyond. They have this graphic that includes this handheld that basically looks like the Steam Deck, but with Xbox buttons on it. So the fact that they're considering going down another SKU, a handheld SKU, would make me think that in their corporate world, they're seeing that, the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally and the Switch are very viable platforms. PlayStation is having that stupid streaming thing, whatever it's called, PSP.
Yeah, PlayStation
version 2. Yeah. So obviously Microsoft's feeling a little left out, and they obviously have plans to try to develop one of their own, which is so strange because when Vita died, everyone kind of thought, oh, that's the end of handhelds. And then the Switch comes out and all of a sudden, oh, everyone's back on the handheld, bandwagon, which is pretty incredible. So it'll be interesting. I'm kind of interested that they would consider going down a handheld route because xCloud streams to phones, streams to iPads, and you could just Bluetooth a controller onto it. So it seems like
I
a
totally
lot of
agree.
extra.
That is an indicator that technology might not get to where it needs to be, because to go like Steve Jobs, why do I need a portable console when I have one in my pocket with me all the time?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's everything about this is like more red flags. Not that I haven't been raising red flags about Microsoft since they both announced their consoles, and everyone said I was nuts. And you guys are all Game Pass cronies. Get real.
We dabble. It's perfect dabblers.
Still like Game Pass, but it's not been a great year and a half for Game Pass, I would say.
I will say the Xbox Series X refresh, kind of mimicking the Apple Cylinder Pro computers, diskless and digital only seems to be a thing. I genuinely like the look of that console.
Yeah, I think it looks cool. And yeah, the all digital thing is interesting. Like everybody seemed kind of scared to go all digital at the beginning of this generation, but it really feels like I don't know too many people who are buying games on disc anymore. So it's I think it's happening whether we like it or not.
So we said the games are the thing that matters. So let's get into some of the game leaks. And I think this was like from a roadmap for 6 years or something like that. Don't quote me on this. But there was, I have the full thing now. Okay. The Indiana Jones game, Oblivion remaster. I'm going to skip some stuff. Doom Year Zero, Project Kestrel, Project Platinum, interesting. Elder Scrolls 6 and 24. 24. That's quarter. So that's actually probably 2025, right? Like fourth quarter.
And end of year 2024, fiscal year 24. So I don't know when their fiscal year ends.
Yeah.
But it would be sometime in the year 2024.
Fallout 3 remaster, Ghostwire Tokyo sequel, Dishonored 3, and some Doom Zero DLC. I did see elsewhere a Red Dead Redemption Red Dead Redemption 2 next gen upgrade. I think all the remaster, like Oblivion, Fallout 3 remaster, are good ideas. I'm not going to like shame them for doing good remasters for games that could use it. The other ones.
Did you mention Dishonored 3 is on here?
Yeah, maybe I didn't. Okay. Dishonored 3. The projects are intriguing to me. Project Platinum, I would guess it's a Platinum Games project, even though, what was the Platinum Games game that got canceled? Scalebound? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, I think so.
So I'm kind of surprised if that's what it is, that they're still kind of working stuff together.
It's hard to tell how old this is because Starfield right now is fiscal year 21 end of year, which is not when it released. It just released, which is 2023. So
yeah, exactly.
I mean, they're way off. So this could be 2 years old. This could be 3 years old. This could be very old.
Well, it has
estimate
2020 in here as one of the years. So
yeah,
it is definitely outdated. I think Phil made a statement like this is almost or really outdated information, and I would not disagree at all. So I'm sure they have other stuff now. This is very old. But I mean, the observation was how much of this. Oh, so is this the thing I'm looking at is only Bethesda's release schedule. So that makes sense that it's all Bethesda games. That's the literal document. It's a Bethesda document. So I don't know. I don't even know why that would be a big deal. But I don't know. We all knew this stuff. The most surprising thing to me would be a Ghostwire Tokyo sequel. And I think I saw somewhere the sales numbers for that were 5 or 8 million, which I was shocked by.
That seems pretty high for that game.
Yeah. Don't quote me on that, by the way. And Doom Zero, I think would be, or Doom Year Zero, pardon me, would be a pretty big release, and people will be hyped for that for sure.
Yeah, no huge surprises. I agree. I mean, the Oblivion remaster maybe is a little bit of a surprise. You know, everybody's looking ahead, thinking about the next Elder Scrolls game, but I mean, that is Skyrim's been, sold a million times on a million different platforms, but Oblivion feels like one that maybe all the Skyrim people didn't play, so like it's a good chance to go back and check it out.
Yeah, and there's
been 3 as well.
Yeah, but the Oblivion, or maybe it was Morrowind that I'm thinking of. There have been some like ray tracing and upgrade projects surrounding that game. So
I think AI texture upscaling stuff like that to make it look better.
That's what it is. That's what I'm thinking of. Thank you. These better be full remasters. Like, I'm not interested in going and playing a slightly improved version. My guess would be they are just taking kind of the blueprint for Starfield and applying it to these games, and they're probably built on the same systems and ideas, would be my guess. But nothing. I'm not going to say or assume this is the entire Xbox plan for the next few years. Obviously, Gears of War. It's been a while since we've gotten a new Gears of War, and there will be Halo stuff. So I don't know. In terms of a game lineup, this wouldn't scare me, but it is kind of an indicator of how important that Bethesda acquisition was.
Yeah, I mean, one other thing too that I think was in one of the emails or something, like it was interesting that Phil Spencer was saying that AAA publishers are falling behind a bit with the digital storefronts taking over and digital taking over, because it's like, what's the point of a publisher if anybody can get their game on equal, on a level playing field in terms of where people are buying it from. So that's kind of an interesting point. And in terms of what Bethesda's doing, it's all sequels. And that was something Spencer called out in one of his emails, I think, the idea that, it's just a lot of sequel, nobody taking risks in the AAA space, which, nothing new. Again, we all knew that, but I mean, it's IGN told us a while back. Is it a problem that Sony is focusing on AAA games? And I guess Xbox is doing the same thing. So I guess that's more about indie stuff, but obviously no indie information, or I don't think there was any like indicators that Game Pass is doing well or poorly in the leak that I saw.
I was listening to some podcasts that were talking about that, but I haven't been able to find where they were finding that information.
Okay.
The one thing we did miss about hardware, just to go back quickly, is that on one of the slides it did mention that the next gen, like Gen 10 hardware, is targeted for 2028, which would put it at like an 8-year window, which is basically, I just looked it up. Xbox One came out in 2013, Series X came out in 2020. So 7 years there. 8 seems to be the thing. I think there was one that was like 10 years apart. But it seems like 7 to 8 is kind of like the sweet spot for new consoles. So I think I don't think that's, I mean, I think people could have guessed that number, just like we were saying before. Nothing is outrageous here. These all seem like very straightforward numbers. And no giant surprises in that regard.
With the next gen thing, like, yeah, anybody could have guessed that, but it is interesting once you kind of just put it out there that, hey, they were talking about this, they're planning it. Somehow people kind of get a little angry about that because it's like, we're still buying the current gen. We don't want to think about the next gen. So it is interesting how people react to that.
It is ridiculous because, like, of course they're going to be thinking about the future. Do you think they just like wake up in 2028 and be like, okay, let's put out a console. Okay, let's just grab stuff on the shelf and throw something together and put it out there? Like, that's not how it works.
What shape are we going to use this time to put our computer in?
I can't wait. I can't wait to hear the name. What are they going to go with next?
Oh my God.
I can't wait.
Even just talking about this story with other people, it's just a reminder of how bad their naming is and branding. So Apple should buy Microsoft too. and teach them how to brand their things. Does anyone know like how much Xbox gaming accounts for like revenue for Microsoft as a company? Like an estimated percentage.
I would bet it's small. 5%?
Yeah, I wouldn't think it's a big thing because like isn't that one of the kind of criticisms? Like everybody thinks Microsoft has a ton of money, but a lot of and so Xbox should be benefiting from that. But I think a lot of people look at Xbox as like if they start losing money, they can only do it for so long before they're just going to cut it loose.
Yeah, there's got to be some like partial motivational factor to me is like, yeah, it doesn't really matter what we do in the sense that I'm guessing this leak didn't affect stock prices whatsoever.
Okay, this could be wrong, but I just did a quick Google search and it looks like Microsoft has almost 200 billion in revenue. And when I searched Xbox, now it was the year before, but it was only 6 billion. So it's like even less than I would have thought. Tiny.
The one thing maybe that
3%.
Maybe the real value for Xbox in terms of Microsoft is it makes them cool, like Microsoft feels in every other way like an old software company that nobody really pays attention to anymore, but the Xbox is kind of the cool thing they have going for them.
Yeah, they've got viral mini fridges like
but Microsoft's like main business now is like the AI stuff they're doing, still obviously Windows still is everywhere. Bing's got to bring in at least $5 here or there.
Yeah, I mean they got cloud stuff like Azure.
And I actually read that Azure is big, and I just read an article saying today that they were going to look into powering Azure data centers with small modular nuclear reactors. So they're they're trying to entice nuclear engineers to work on like a Microsoft SMR, SMR? Yeah, small modular reactor, SMR. You ever heard that term? No? Sorry, I'm all in the nuclear space, so I love that stuff. But so they're creating these small modular reactors to power their infrastructure now to get off grid and go green and all that stuff. So they can get into that game as well, like and diversify out of just, Windows, quote unquote. But I mean, Azure's huge, I think, as well. That's probably where most of their money comes from now.
Going green. Gotta be.
Love it.
All right. I'm pretty much toast for this. Did we miss anything?
No, I think that was pretty much it.
Okay. There was one thing that I saw on one slide that is like for game developers, and they were talking about on the next gen, what are they going to add to like improve creator efficiency? And one of them was AI game testing, which I found very interesting if it's what I imagine it to be, which is I upload a game to, the Microsoft game testing suite and I tell it whatever, some parameters, and it just goes to town and then gives me a giant bug report of like crashes and stuff. Like that would be pretty powerful from a developer. You get like thousands and thousands of playtests basically on Microsoft's dime, if that's how it works. I'm sure you have to pay for it, but pretty cheaply compared to hiring like a QA staff and everything. So that could be pretty interesting from that regard for me. Yeah.
I could see it being a lot more beneficial just on a first thought. That's a really interesting find. Maybe certain people play test it initially and then it gathers that data and uses it to generate more data for recurring play tests, or you could use it for like TCR stuff, like unplugging controllers and seeing what happens. And like,
do they not use is there not automated stuff happening in terms of game testing right now?
I'm sure they do.
But yeah, because it just seems like the next step in that.
I mean, you can write your own quote unquote automated tests if you want to, and capture input in a file and then feed that into the game as if someone's putting it on it. Like you basically take away the controller and input this data file that has like controller inputs and like the time they happen at and simulate someone playing the game. And that's sort of like very brute force automated testing like that. But I think this AI testing is like, give us the game, tell us like what the buttons do, and then we just learn how to play it and report back kind of thing. Which I think is how the StarCraft, what was it, Watson or whatever, did the Jeopardy. What did Watson do? Jeopardy, and then I think the same thing kind of was trained on StarCraft and some of the other big games. And I think that's basically how they did. They basically like threw the game at it, gave us some basic prompts, and then said like, what's a goal state? And then you just try to like millions and millions of iterations until the game figures out how to win, basically.
Interesting. All right. That's some game dev talk right there. Speaking of game dev talk, let's get into the Unity apology. Unity apologizes for some controversial changes and walks back some. It's just as a summary, I'll let you guys get into the details. It seems like it's a better alternative to what they already had, at least how it was presented in the apology, or this is the new thing. And the feedback has been generally positive. Like Rami Ismail said, you know what, on a first glance, I think this works. And Rami has a lot of influence in the gaming sphere. So
yeah, he sure does.
That probably went a long way. So
I imagine though, Unity reached out to a bunch of like the top creators and got lots of feedback, and before they wrote this up, they would not make that mistake again.
Imagine if they did that the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been good.
Always get feedback and play test your ideas before you put them out there.
Especially when you're talking about taking millions of dollars from people.
Yeah. So I guess the question, and I'll ask it to you guys, is the damage done? Is the trust of Unity shattered? Let's not forget there was nothing to this level but a Unity controversy with the malware exec and all, or acquisition and all this stuff. So, I mean, you could use that technology for lots of things. I didn't think that was a big deal necessarily, and I wasn't surprised when it dissipated quickly, but this one seems like it might stick. But money talks. What are we saying, gentlemen?
Huck, you go first. You know.
Okay. I don't know. Like, to me, this is much better. Like, it's basically if you make over $1 million in your last 12 months, you have to pay 2.5%, which seems very reasonable, to be honest, for a giant engine. I think Unreal is 5% still, unless you go on the Epic Store, and I think also at $1 million. So then, and they also said something about calculated based on the number of new people engaging with your game each month. So there's still that sort of like install thing, but it's going to be whichever is lower. That's what you pay, 2% or whatever this magical install calculation is they're going to talk about. But I was definitely seeing on Twitter, like in those first couple weeks or couple days, a lot of people were saying, I'm out of Unity. I'm going to Godot. Like, I'm out. But I have a feeling a lot of that is all talk, to be honest, now that they've switched back, because it costs a lot more money to switch everything over to a new engine and have everyone on your team learn that new engine than probably you would ever pay Unity for this royalty that they've proposed. Now, I know they've also added, like, I think higher costs for the non-personal versions of Unity. So obviously there is going to be a little bit of an ongoing monthly fee for that. But I think like smaller studios, they would pay for like one seat, and they would just have one person kind of like make the builds up with that one seat instead of paying for like a professional version for everybody. It does depend on your studio size, but smaller place, 3 to 5 people, they would probably pull that trick.
And I think the possibly that is just to address the speculation we talked about last week, just trying to get money from people who use Unity for just like App Store, tiny things that never make money, but they use it constantly, and they have to support it and answer stuff in forums or who knows what. So just getting a little something there because of Unity's ease of use for the most part. I was also kind of surprised to read about like the metrics, like their companies are expected to report those numbers in good faith, which I was never really sure how that worked.
I think that's what you do normally, but they could, I think in the contract, they can audit you. Yeah. So like, obviously, if you say I sold 0 for the last 12 months, they're going to be like, that doesn't sound right because I see people talking about your game all the time, kind of thing. So but I think all of them are self-reported.
You're saying that's the current situation, right?
Because I think it is.
But it sounded like moving forward, because they were talking about, as you mentioned, Huck, this like 2.5% or, whatever the install base is, whichever one's lower. And they made it sound like they would be the ones calculating that for you. So you didn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, well, I think you have to like report. I think you're supposed to send them your sales data, right? So you get like a report from Nintendo, a report from Steam, a report from Sony. You're supposed to forward that stuff on to them, I believe, so that they can see it.
So they're probably calculating the install feed. They seemingly have this way to know how many times your game's been installed.
Yeah. So like for Epic Dumpster Bear and Jank Brain, I get a monthly report from Nintendo of how many units I sold, how much money we made, etc. So every game has that info if you're at like, a publisher-esque level. And then, I mean, that's another advantage of getting a publisher. They would deal with this stuff, I would think.
Right.
The other thing in this, before you go, Sean, sorry, they mentioned that it's no longer retroactive, which is what a lot of people were pissed off about, is that it didn't matter what version of Unity, this was going to be slapped on no matter what, which from talking with some other game devs, that like broke the terms of service, the existing terms of service, because I guess in the existing terms of service that people sign up, it says that any major changes will only kind of impact the newer versions going forward into the future. So that's what this now does as well. So now it's only the next year. So whatever 2024 long-term support versions will have this applied if you choose to upgrade.
Yeah, which is huge. I mean, that's, for people listening, and probably a lot of people are like, why do I care about this? I mean, that was one thing right off the bat with the old model they proposed. People were saying January 1st, we are pulling our games from storefronts. You're not going to be able to buy our game anymore because we can't afford to have these install fees.
But if it was retroactive, like when you pull games, aren't you required to keep it on this, like for download from the store?
Yeah. And that's where it's like, in the initial announcement, they were kind of unclear about like re-downloading a game, if that counted. And they kind of said, okay, maybe that won't count. But like, yeah, I mean, that's still.
That was just more of a bullying tactic, like, right? So
I think so. But yeah, like that was something I'm sure people were hearing about and were thinking, oh, well, this sucks. Like Cult of the Lamb, they said they were going to pull that. And so,
otherwise, why would you pull it that day? Pull it right now.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I mean, I think ultimately this, like, it is interesting to think. And I think you maybe mentioned this last week, Frank, but it's like, they were thinking of doing something like this, and then it's like you put out this announcement with like crazy terms, and then you pull it back, and now people are like, "Oh, okay, that's actually good."
Actually, cheaper than before now.
Yeah, but if you had put these terms out initially, it probably still would have had a bit of a backlash for sure. But I don't know if it was good or bad. Like ultimately, like I think Huck's right that it's hard to change engines, especially for small teams where it's like, if you're experts in Unity and that's what like, are you really going to completely switch engines? Like that's a big move. So I think a lot of people will probably stick with them, but I don't know.
Either way, Unity better start just getting their shit together with their systems, promising things, and actually delivering them on time, not 4 years later or possibly not at all, with some of the stuff they promised. And ECS and DOTS have been a clusterfuck for 4 years. And so anyway, now we're really
getting. Are they even officially released?
I don't know. And okay. Whenever I try to do research on it, it's It's really hard to get great documentation, and I don't know. They have bigger problems, so they should have been worried about that stuff, not changing their pricing model. But they obviously there's something going on there, and we'll see where it goes.
But I mean, that's a question too. It's like people are aware now that they're taking a bigger cut potentially, so they're going to expect to see some, improvements on that side. And if they don't, they might not be happy about that either. So, yeah. But one other small thing that I saw that seemed like they were actually in making this an apology. So you mentioned the Unity personal thing, Huck. So I think the revenue cap was 100,000 before. Now it's up to 200,000. Like, does that feel like kind of like a, hey, we're sorry we screwed over the smaller developers. This is our way to make it.
I thought it was up to $1 million.
Well, it's $1 million for the full Unity,
Pro?
I think.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But for personal, and I don't know, like, I don't, after 200,000, does that mean you're going to get charged this stuff, or does that just mean you have to move to pro? I really don't know.
I mean, that would probably be a decision you could make to avoid some of these payments, like, paying an extra $1,000 a month for pro, the upgrade to pro is probably going to be, you'd probably have to weigh it. Is it going to be cheaper or not?
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. Hard to say.
All right. Just don't forget, 15 years ago, Unity was just starting. Unreal was the biggest engine, and then it completely shifted. And now the waters are muddied again. Unreal's kind of slightly on top. Godot is gaining steam. So any of this stuff, I'm surprised more like game developers don't try to monetize their engine.
It's a lot to maintain, though.
That's true, 100%. I guess
you basically become a software company at that point. Yeah. Like, you're not really a game company anymore. We thought about doing it when we were doing the Citizens of Earth engine, and we thought about, do we kind of like release this to let people do it, license it out? But we were kind of like running the numbers. Like, you would spend your whole day just dealing with support tickets and trying to write documentation and make sure people actually know how to use the engine. Like, it would be a disaster.
Sounds like a major lawsuit waiting to happen.
Could be. Yeah, you'd have to get lawyers involved to write up terms of service and, all that stuff.
Okay. We done? Goodbye, Unity. We'll see you later. Yeah. All right. I don't want to hear about Unity stuff anymore. Okay. Did we play anything?
So I played a few things. Actually, I forgot. I wanted to mention this game. I like weird, sometimes gimmicky games that are trying something new. So I checked out this game called One Hand Clapping, which was on sale on Xbox. I don't know if it's on sale anywhere else currently, but Frank, you hate blow mechanics in games, but how do you feel about singing mechanics in games?
I love to sing.
So this is a 2D platformer where you have to hook up a mic and you interact with the game with your voice as well. And I was playing it today with the kids, and it was kind of fun. I mean, I don't know.
I've heard of this game, actually.
Yeah, it's a few years old, I think. Yeah. And but like, the first level, you just kind of make
you go up in pitch to go up, and
well, the first level is you're not dealing with pitch. It's just making a noise, and that like lifts platforms and stuff. And then the second level, it starts introducing pitch, which is kind of interesting. Like, there's sections where you kind of like Kirby's Canvas Curse or something, where you kind of have to draw platforms that you can jump on, but like your voice dictates how high or low they are. So I don't know.
So is it one person singing and one person playing the character, or?
Well, I mean, I think it's supposed to be a single player game, but that's how we were playing it. So, the kids were just doing the singing and I was doing the platforming, but it was kind of fun. I don't know. It's definitely a unique idea. And I mean, it wasn't blowing me away, but it was kind of cool. It actually worked pretty well, I thought.
Okay. I'm an absolute embarrassment still. I'm so far behind in games, but today before the show, I'm like, I gotta play something. And Sean had told me about this game called Turbo Overkill that had a 90 on Metacritic, a boomer shooter. And I fired it up, and I'm pretty surprised by the Metacritic, not gonna lie.
Yeah. Okay.
The Destructoid review on there is 75, which feels about right from what I played. It's got some really good mechanics and ideas. It's fun, it's fast, but a lot of boomer shooters are fun and fast. It just seems like not quite finished yet. I think it was early access and this is the 1.0 version, but some stuff it's very deliberate about telling you where to go with markers and teaching you things. Other things were confusing. Like the introductory levels are pretty rough around the edges. Like that seems like the biggest point of failure so far. Mechanics fun, graphics are okay. I do find though, when I try these new release games or early access games on Steam Deck, it's a bad idea. Like it doesn't really support the controller sometimes. Then depending on where it's saving player preferences and settings, I open it up on my computer later, and like my resolution's completely fucked for coming from the Steam Deck, and that should be easy stuff to kind of figure out. But yeah, it was okay. I might return to it. But there's so many boomer shooters, and I know Sean and I kind of mentioned this before. They're fun in theory, less fun in practice. So I don't know.
Pure nostalgia play.
Yeah. You play it for a bit. It's cool. And then I never beat them.
Yeah. It's I played one called Ultrakill, I think, which looks very similar.
That's a roguelike though, isn't it? Or
I don't remember much about it, to be honest, but same vibe.
Because I actually think I should try a roguelike boomer shooter. No, maybe not. Did I take it back? I don't think so. Because I need more variety, and like all the levels are very similar. So maybe replaying them, there's not that much difference between levels. Did you play this, Sean?
No, I haven't played this one yet. No.
Yeah. I don't know. I was struggling to find like a map that was easy to read. The menu was pretty confusing and overwhelming, but people seem to love it. So I will give it another chance at some point, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I do want to check it out. I guess like that's the thing is, I've played some of these as well and enjoyed them, but like this one seemed like just based on that, like sometimes I just scan the Metacritic scores and see like what's ranked really high for this year. And this was up there. And I was like, what is this? And so like, I was just curious, like, what is it about this game that seems to be putting it a little above some of the other ones? But it sounds like you're saying there's nothing.
I don't know, but my guess would be almost like a strategy, because it's in early access, of curating reviewers and like deciding who you hand it to.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a good strategy. So
not bad. If you can get people to play it. Normally it's like when you're a small company, give it to as many people as possible and just hope you get enough that play it to generate a score. So I'm not sure. Anyone have anything else?
I can mention a couple quick things. I mean, Huck, you said you didn't have anything.
I just remembered I played more Night Witch. Still liking that game. It's definitely if I get to a challenging area, I do have to play it probably 5 or 6 times to get through it. And I don't know if it's to the point of frustration, because usually it's fairly close to a save point, so the backtracking is not too painful. But yeah, still really like that game. I like the twin stick aspect of it, but yeah, not too much to add at this point. So that's really the only thing I played. I think I played a little bit more Sea of Stars too, but nothing really substantial.
I've got to play that. I've seen a bunch of footage. It was featured a lot on PlayStation's Instagram account, and it looks really good.
Sea of Stars?
Yeah, Sea of Stars.
Yeah.
Did you beat the messenger yet?
No. I'm stuck on an achievement. And it kind of discouraged me.
Disaster.
Okay, so just real quick, I played a little bit of Party Animals. I don't know if you were going to check this out at some point, Frank, but I guess I feel like maybe I misunderstood what this game was. Like and maybe there's additional game modes that I didn't see, but I just tried out some local multiplayer with the kids, and it was basically a Gang Beasts type brawler game,
That's
which
what I
is
thought it
fine.
was.
It's fun, it's fine, but it didn't seem to be offering anything new other than the cute animals, basically. But I thought, like, I swear there were some different types of game modes, and I haven't fully explored it, so I'll have to give it another look. But it's fine. It's on Game Pass, so if you're kind of into those kinds of games, it's you might want to give it a look. And then what else? Oh, well, I played a bit of Gunbrella, and
I did too, like 15 minutes.
so I played a couple hours, and like I like it quite a bit. I think the thing I'm struggling with is like all the stuff that the Gunbrella can do is really cool. Like in a lot of the movement and stuff, like being able to like shoot up in the air and then float down, or like go across zip lines. All that stuff's really fun. And obviously you can use it as a shield. There's a lot of different uses for it. I kind of feel like, would it have been more fun if you doled that stuff out throughout the game instead of giving it all to you up front? Because there's not a lot in terms of skill progression. Like there's some new weapon types you can get, like or bullet types, I guess I would say, for the gun, but not a lot else. So I'm feeling like that side of it is kind of boring me a little bit, but I do like the artwork and even the story. I'm kind of digging. So it's good. It's just not completely blowing me away. I don't know. I feel like that's a lot of games this year. I've been going in expecting big things, and they're good, but they're just not going that extra level for me. And then I guess Starfield, still playing a lot of Starfield. I'm actually feeling like getting closer to the end of the main quest now, the main storyline. And I'm kind of wondering, like, I know this is a thing a lot of people say about open world games, like the side quests are better than the main quests. That's like a common thing. I don't I'm feeling that with this game, and I don't understand it. Like, why would you ever want that to be the case? Like, the main quest should be giving you amazing story stuff. And then if I want to branch off and do some side quest stuff, maybe that stuff feels a little repetitive and grindy, but whatever. But in this case, I'm feeling like the main quest is more grindy and the side stuff is more interesting.
Didn't David Jaffe say it's his like favorite single player story ever?
Yeah,
Something
he
like
did say that. I mean, I am liking where it's going in terms of the sci-fi stuff. There's some interesting stuff there, but it's just so sparse. Like there's, the main quest for the first like 10 or 15 hours, you're basically getting these artifacts and there's powers that you kind of are going to find. But the powers in particular, it's so dull. All the missions for those powers are just go to a planet, walk endlessly until you find a temple, and then you get the power. Like there's nothing there. Like I don't understand why those powers were not tied to interesting quests. But anyway.
My only follow up for the side quest versus main quest idea is I think a lot of the time why side quests are more interesting is a full game narrative has to be designed to be somewhat generic because you don't know how long it's going to be in between play sessions, and it could take 30 hours and the details get lost along the way, where a side quest is usually short and you can tell compact, interesting stories with a little more complexity and maybe lean into a particular theme, idea, usually humor, that makes it more memorable. Where like main quests this isn't a good thing, but generic by design in some cases. And a game that did that really well was Fable 2 and Fable 3. Fable 3 specifically was really good at kind of turning their main quest into cliches and each kind of sub chapter into a really specific story. Anyway.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Okay, I think that's it. Before we wrap up, I have to say, Zapata 36, you won the contest. Please email us if you hear this. If anyone knows Zapata 36 on YouTube, tell them.
GameJunkPodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you, Sean. And I will get your code to you ASAP. I don't know how else to get it to you. So get in contact with us somehow. Maybe Sean on Twitter @FilmJunk, Andrew on Twitter, My Angry Commute, or Equilibrium Assists. Or I don't know if there's another way through YouTube or something. Anyway, youtube.com/GameJunk to check out the show visually. And Discord links are on there as well. Leave some comments, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening or watching. Bye-bye.